Hi, Chris.
Hi, Nicole.
Welcome to the New Orleans Swag and Heritage Foundation Threadhead Talking Threadhead podcast. Welcome back to the Talking Threadheads. We got the band back together again, as promised at the end of the first week episode. Which, if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. We had a lot of fun making it. I was really proud of that one. I thought it was really good. One of the items of feedback that we received, which I thought was really helpful, was to name the stages and the times for everything. I don't think we're going to be able to do that with the level of precision that would be great. And the reason why I don't think we can do that is because I think it's going to disrupt the flow. Believe it or not, this is not scripted. This is just off the top of our heads. So in exchange,
Wait, it's not scripted?
just for you, just for you.
I gotta throw out my script. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, what? Wow,
Um,
we're gonna have to ad lib. That's really crazy. But go
yeah,
ahead.
and I got to get out of here. So no, anyhow, Jordan, tell us about your cube situation.
So two things. I don't like the cubes as they exist because I can't read them. And when you get them in the offbeat, they're even smaller. And there was a time that I could read them. There is no longer a time that I can. So I make my own cubes in Excel. And if people want them, they should just email me at jhamoey@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And I'll send them out to you. Same thing if you want to be on my New York music list. Same thing. Email me either way, and I'll send you either cubes or my nighttime grids of the shows that I want to see. And I have highlighted versions or non-highlighted versions, legal or letter. You can pick, and or I'll send you them all. You can print whatever you want.
It's really what everyone's here for, so thank you.
Yeah.
And since we last spoke, I want to provide one quick update because we were all kind of stoked for it. The Walter tribute. Swag, you probably have the details. Do you mind sharing those?
Sure. So on the last call, I mentioned that there was going to be a park that is well known to Threadheads as the park on Esplanade, where the taxi and bus stand is across from Canseco's. And that park, the city council is going to vote next week to rename that as Wolfman Park in honor of Wolfman Washington. And the ceremony for the rededication was originally scheduled for first Sunday of Jazz Fest, right around the time the fest was ending. But they have since rescheduled that, and it's now going to be held on the weekend after Jazz Fest. So apologies to you out-of-towners who won't be able to attend, but anyone who's local, look out for that with more details as the date approaches.
It's a better
Way
choice.
smarter.
Way
Way
smarter.
smarter.
But since we're on Thursday, May 4th, I'm assuming this is Wolfman Day at the festival.
Right.
Thursday that, yeah.
So it's going to start with an interview mid-afternoon at the Allison Minor stage, where people are going to be sharing their memories of Walter. Following that, in the blues tent, his band, the Roadmasters, is going to be holding down court with all kinds of special guests, I'm sure. And then actually early in the afternoon, 12:45, they're having a jazz funeral for him, which is similar to the typical Jazz Fest parades, with bands and social and pleasure clubs on the same route. But it will be in honor of Walter. People will be carrying his pictures, and it will, I'm assuming, end over behind Congo Square, where they will unveil an ancestor portrait of him.
Yeah, if people want to catch those, the
ahead.
easiest way is to kind of stand near the Jazz and Heritage stage, like on the concrete path, and you'll be in the way, and then you'll just get on the end of the parade and follow everybody, and you'll end up at the statues, as Swag said, and that's where I assume, they'll have a new statue for Walter. The statues are all by Congo. Like if you just keep walking to the back of Congo, you'll eventually run into them.
Yeah. And we talked a lot. I was thinking about this as I was like prepping for this conversation, is like, Jordan and we all of us talked a lot about acts that we think about that feel like family. And I think, unfortunately, I've had the honor or the pull or the whatever, the like feel of having to go to a few of these in the last few years.
Yeah.
You know, Henry Butler, you know, Art and Charlie, Buckwheat Zydeco. Like there's been a lot of, you know, obviously Dr. John, like there's been a lot of giants of this music that have passed in the last few years.
Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer. Yeah, for sure. And I think just to say to the listeners, if you haven't done one of these, like it is, if Walter meant something to you, it is worth your while to try to get to this. Just because usually there's somebody from the family or the band that says something, they're usually one or two performances, you know, and they're small and quiet, and you know, there's Congo sound bleed because there's Congo sound bleed everywhere. But they're just really, I've found them like as a way to say goodbye to people. They've meant a lot to me. So if you're somebody, Walter Wolfman Washington was one of the performers at one of the very first club shows that I went to as a teen at Tramps in New York City in the early 90s. And so I've always had a place in my heart for him. And so, yeah, just a little plug for that.
And I'll take the opportunity just to reiterate what those 3 events are in what order. So the jazz funeral for Walter is at 12:45, and then if you want to keep following Walter Day at the Allison Minor Music Heritage Stage, that interview begins at 2:30 until 3:15, and then you can scoot on over to the Blues Tent for the Roadmasters tribute at 4:10. That's probably the most in depth I'm going to get on stages and times.
That's all for listener Barbara from New Jersey.
Yep.
So
right.
let's just dive in more into Thursday, May 4th. Who's going first?
The band that absolutely fascinates me that someone had recommended without saying anything about them is a band called Six Hearts.
Yes.
From Prince Edward Island. So someone recommended them. I went to go look them up, and I found virtually nothing. This is a band that is less than a year after their formation. They apparently played only 3 or 4 gigs, all in their native Canada. They have no website. They have an Instagram and a Facebook page with, I think, 5 or 6 total posts on there. And I'm like, how is this band playing Jazz Fest? But apparently this is, there were 2 other bands in the area that had each lost one of their members. And the remaining members, rejoined as this new band, Six Hearts. I found one video of them. It's kind of an Irish sound to me, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to catching them. And then they do have two gigs, one early in the day in the Cultural Pavilion and one later in the day at Fade Odo.
My understanding is that they are an Acadian Celtic, traditional Acadian Celtic sound mashed up. So that's also one of my picks for Thursday.
And every year, Jazz Fest seems to have one Prince Edward Island band.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I don't like Celtic music normally, every year I go see one of those bands and fall in love with that band. 10 strings and 10 skins and a goat string, or no, 10 strings and a goat skin was one of them. There's another one. I think the East Pointers of PEI they were here before, so they're part of this band too. Yeah, I agree.
So I have a question for you, people who know more about music than I do, and that's probably all of you. Tell me about Larkin Poe. They're playing the Blues Tent at 5:45. What do you know about them, if anything? Don't all jump
tell us
in
if you're
at
going to ask a
once.
question like that.
No, that's part of the spontaneity, the unscripted nature of this.
I'm waiting for other people because I listened to them for the first time yesterday. So if other people know more, go.
I mean, the only thing I know about them is I'm really sad they're playing at the same time as Santana and Morgan Heritage.
Exactly.
There's like approximately a negative 25% chance that I'm going to catch any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen Santana in a very long time, and same with Morgan Heritage. So I think.
But you would go to Larkin Poe if you didn't have a schedule conflict?
I've not really listened to very much of their stuff, to be honest. I don't know them.
So I listened to them and was really impressed. It was like a deep blues sound, which I expected to be more of a pop kind of thing, but they had some real teeth to them in a way that I didn't expect. So if I get everything right and the planets align, I'll go hit Buddy Guy at 3:25 on the festival stage. Flip over to the end of the tribute for Walter at in the blues tent. Run over to the Quickening at 5:30 because that band I love. If you haven't seen the Quickening, Dave Easley is on pedal steel with a bunch of young kids, and it's a fun band. They play from 5:30 to 6:30 on the Lanyap stage, and then end with Larkin Poe / Santana.
So I like Larkin Poe a lot. They totally like fit into my typical, like if the algorithm would definitely recommend them to me and probably have. I'm not interested in them that day at Jazz Fest because they are Nashville and I get to go to Nashville pretty often, so I can catch them there probably.
I gotta say, my number one pick that day, even though I've seen him many times, is Buddy Guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't know how much longer he's going to be alive. I hate to sound crass like that, but they're billing this as his last tour, right?
Yeah, I mean, he said some things in some interviews about like he'll still come to Jazz Fest or New Orleans and stuff like that.
Every year. Yeah, he said he played Jazz Fest every year.
But like, here's the thing. I don't know if any of y'all caught any of his set in the Blues Tent last year.
I saw the whole thing last year.
He was a house of fire.
Yeah.
He tore he tore it up. And
he's amazing. He's amazing.
He's still like not lost a step. And he was totally like harangued, like the crowd wasn't cheering at different points, and he was like harassing the crowd. It was just showmanship, and still it's all there.
And chops, yeah.
I used to see Buddy Guy a lot in the 90s and 2000s, and
He used to come all the time.
Yeah, and after about 3 times of kind of seeing the identical show a year or 2 later, kind of gave up on him and said, okay, he's great, but I've seen that show, and I kind of haven't seen him in a while. But given that it's been a while, and given that his career does seem to be winding down, whether this is my last opportunity or not, I do have him highlighted.
Yeah,
like I would say I was exactly in the place that you were, and last year I was like, I should go see him one last time. Yes. Because I've seen him do that. I can play like Stevie Ray, I can play like whoever, and do the same shtick over and over. But last year I was kicking myself for all the shows I missed because he was so good.
Yeah,
it is unfortunate that he's been.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, it is unfortunate that he's up against Bonorama and the Roadmasters, but I'm just going to have to see Bonorama out. There are a couple opportunities to do that, so I'll see him.
How do we feel about Bonorama without Craig Klein?
I think they're wonderful.
Doesn't matter?
No, it's just a bunch of trombones. I mean, I love Bonorama. Like, listen, I don't like to say like negative things because that's not my business. I mean, Bonorama is a dance band, like it's not a symphony or something. I mean, they're very skilled. I love them. They're a great dance band. I love Craig. I love all the projects that he's involved in. It's cool.
And Mark is no slouch. Mark Mullins is no slouch.
No.
He's one of the best trombone players in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And they used to have 7 trombones. They went down, or 5. They went down to 3. Now I don't know what they're at now, but that band changes. But yeah, it's still a fun band.
What about who's gonna see Aurora Nealand?
Yeah, I have problems for all of that. Yeah. That day, the Thursday for me, I'm shocked, but the one tent or the one place that I will find myself more than I can imagine is the Blues Tent. Mm-hmm. Shea Lake at 12, John Mooney at 1:30, Johnny Sansone at 2:50.
That's a great
Roadmasters tributes at 4:10, and Larkin Poe at 5:45. If I break my leg, I'll be happy in the Blues Tent.
They have a great stretch in there, no doubt. I mean, Aurora Nealand is on my list, and pretty much always I would see her play the phone book. I'm excited to catch her. I'm very bummed to miss the like triple threats Sidney Bechet tribute the previous weekend, so I'm excited to catch her in Economy Hall always. The folks that I feel like are the like big, what I thought you were going to say, Jordan, was I was shocked at the number of conflicts I feel like I have throughout this day, and a lot more. It's a lot more running than I expect to be doing on, you know, on second Thursday. There's just a lot cooking. You know, from Jump Street, you've got Chris Royal going up against the former Tips interns, now New Orleans music program led by the Big Chief, right? Like right at 11:15, you've already got a pretty sizable conflict. Two incredible players in their own right, and both with amazing stories. You know, like Chris Royal has gone through so much health stuff, and he's battled back from that to try to get back into shape to play saxophone. You know, Donald Harrison Jr. is an NEA jazz master. Like you can't go wrong, and has been just like the mentor for so many incredible musicians that have come out of New Orleans as the sort of next generation. I think the biggest circle on my list, just because I missed him last year, is to get my tuchus to the Lanyap stage at 12:40 for Mahmoud Chouki. You know, that was by all, you know, so many accounts, one of the best sets of the year last year, and I want to make sure I get there. I'm also really excited for Artemis in the jazz tent at 4:05. It's an all-women jazz supergroup. I don't know all of those players super well, but Alexa Tarantino is a heater. Like there's some really great players in that group. It is literally up against the Roadmasters tributes. So I might have to do a little, you know, sprint back and forth, grab an iced coffee on the way between the blues tent and the jazz tent. But I definitely want to catch some of them there.
That's definitely a doable switch between those two.
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm glad that you pointed out Mahmoud Chouki, because that's my big highlight for the day. That's a tough one because he's up against many other really good choices. My Thursday is going to be shaped a little differently for me because I'm going to be joined by two friends who have not been to Jazz Fest before. And so I'm going to be straddling that line. It will intensify the next day because I'm going to have another newcomer. But
Are they going to listen to this podcast?
of course, well, they might. I mean, they
They'll tell you they did.
They'll tell you they did, yeah.
No, they probably will. So depending on logistics and what time I get them there, I think Mahmoud Chouki is definitely the big pick for me. You know, he'll have, I don't know if he's going to, but last year and other times I've seen him, he's had some of the younger players like Oscar Rossignoli with him and some other folks. Super exciting, great set last year.
Tell our listeners what kind of music it is.
He's a jazz musician.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but he plays.
Go ahead.
What is? No, go ahead.
So, but he's a guitar player, and so Mahmoud Chouki definitely brings in world influence as well. So you're gonna get that. There's some really good YouTube videos of him, so check him out. Make a decision.
Yeah, he's from, I believe, Northern Africa. And,
yeah, it has a Northern African feel to
guitar, but he's definitely a multi-instrumentalist. He will.
I was gonna say, I think I've seen some video of him maybe playing oud also.
Yeah.
There's a really, really nice full concert from the Jazz and Heritage Center.
Yeah.
And that would give you a very good taste of what to expect in the set, I think.
I think if you're looking for shade and a seat, go to Lanyap at 4:20-ish or so and see Loose Cattle. They're just a fun band to see.
Fun country band, yeah.
Yeah, they're a country band.
And if your friends, Nicole, are looking for a gospel jolt, my gospel pick of the day is Kiara Hicks.
And that's 240.
Mine's the singing Mustangs. I love that.
Of course, I mean that's also fun. You get like 40 kids on stage or 60 kids on stage all singing.
Oh, yeah.
You can't go wrong with that.
So before we move on, I want to give I want to call out something that's a little unusual and unfortunately badly scheduled. That's DJ Shrube Presents War Club Live, and that's going to be on the Jazz and Heritage stage. He is a member of a tribe called Red and specializes in electronic powwow music. So it's like indigenous electronic music. You won't see something like this anywhere. I mean, you will see, obviously you would see it if you went to go see him out, but you're not going to find this in your hometown probably. So if you are happening to walk by, stop by and check it out. I'm really interested, so I'm going to try to stop by for a little bit.
Oh, can I give one more very quick shout out? Astral Project. I love those guys. Always a tremendous set in the jazz tent.
Yeah, good solid jazz, like straight ahead jazz. You can follow the beat. You can. It's not like it's avant-garde enough to be interesting, but it's not so far out there that you can't keep up with it. It doesn't make you feel like an idiot.
And there's just something to a band that's played together for so long that they know each other so well. The communication is so great. Yeah.
And then the last two I would say is Corey Leday. If you're looking for a Zydeco band, some real Zydeco dancing, Corey Leday, Zydeco is great. And then I'm gonna somehow figure out a way at 12, somewhere between 12:40 and 1:45 to sneak over to the kids' tent to see the Calliope puppets. They do kind of like a fractured fairy tale puppet story, and just to watch all those little kids try to crawl up on stage and like touch the puppets, it just makes me smile every time. And it won't. I mean, it just you'll have a permanent grin on your face just by stopping by.
For sure. And our favorite former NFL player, park ranger, Sunshine Barnes, closing out the kids' tent at 4:15. I might drag Elijah over there to it just so I have reason to get in.
I love that.
All right, are we on to Friday?
I think so.
We are on to Friday. Give us your top pick.
This is a really weird day for me because I have nothing on the cubes highlighted. And it's not that there aren't, great bands, but it seems like there's nothing that's jumping out as special for me living in New Orleans. It's it's a day full of bands that I've seen a bunch of times before and I always enjoy. The one thing I do want to call out, and this is not actually specific to this day, but since I didn't have much else highlighted, I figured it's a good time to talk about it, is down in the parades, there's something called the Puerto Rican Vigilante Parade. This is something they're actually doing every day of the festival. And it's pretty unusual because, to my recollection, all of the parades that they run through the fairgrounds for as long as I've been going have been New Orleans parades. With Mardi Gras Indians and social and pleasure clubs, and here they're extending it out to the cultural exchange, and with Puerto Rico, and Vigilante parades Vigilante is, I guess, a Puerto Rican folklore character that they celebrate during their Mardi Gras, and so this is a parade that I think may be a little bit different than all the other parades you're seeing. So. That's something to catch, and if you don't want to catch it, if you have conflicts on this Friday, we're actually doing this parade on all 7 days of the festival.
That's really useful information. Thank you. I gotta circle that.
Yeah, as a reminder for everybody, the parades, Folk Life stage, and the kids tent are not
very fun.
So if you want to see the schedule for those, you have to go to the PDF version and print those out. I haven't checked the app; they're probably on there, but if you just look at regular cubes on the website, it's easy to miss these.
God, it's so hard to pick one.
I don't have one. I'm skipping that question.
I mean, the last show I saw before the pandemic happened was John Baptiste at Rockwood Music Hall on Lundi Gras. And he had musicians all over this tiny club, stashed in different places. Jordan, I don't know if you got to be at that show.
I was not, no.
It was crazy. There were musicians everywhere. You weren't paying attention. Next thing you know, from the rafters, there was like a horn section, and then there was a violinist on this side. It was crazy. Then there was a second line to another bar where the Nighthawks were. He sat in with the Nighthawks playing turn of the century stuff. It was an unbelievable night. And he's just so special. I've gotten to see him several times over the years, that I'm really looking forward to him no idea how I'm going to square the circle with Luda, the new John, CJ Chenier, who's a personal favorite, and my I think my favorite of the like new generation of Mardi Gras Indian chiefs. Big Chief Juan is just like he's unstoppable. So it's like having that number of conflicts at the end is just brutal. I'm really excited about John Baptiste. I think a group that I'm also really excited about that's not in that last slot. I mean, there's a handful of great stuff here, and I mean, I always love getting to see Big Chief Donald Harrison. I get to see him a bunch in New York, but I may still go check him out anyway because he's just always really special to hear. The klezmers, the New Orleans klezmer All Stars are closing out. You know, it makes sense. They're closing out Lagniappe on a Friday night, right, as people are getting ready for Shabbos. And they're always such a party, and like they don't tour anymore. So like they're one of those groups that's like a mix of family and also, you know, they're not in New York.
Yeah.
The opening slot is like also nuts because you've got Mark Stone, Lewis Ford, and Buckwheat Zydeco Jr. Like all of those are great places to start. And then you have the Rocks of Harmony and the Gospel Times at 11:45. So it's like there's like no chill in this day.
So wait, I want to mention a little nugget of information. So I heard that Glenn Hartman and the Earth Tones are going to be in the kids' tent at 12:40 that day, and I heard that Glenn Hartman and the Earth Tones are a spinoff of the Klezmers because the Klezmers were banned from the kids' tent for bringing too much chaotic energy. So I don't know if that's true, but I think it's a cute story, right?
It's accurate.
That sounds borderline anti-Semitic to me because all klezmer is chaotic. And it's not true. There's a lot of chaotic energy.
I could see a lot of parents standing around unprepared, though, right?
No, definitely kinetic energy is the best way to describe the klezmers.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad you took John Baptiste because I was trying to pick one, and that was one of them. So you took it for me. That's awesome. Thank you. I saw him at Green River Festival in Massachusetts, and his backup singers alone were worth the price of admission. I would. So now I'm just torn between two, which is Sam Price and the True Believers on the Lagniappe stage at 1:45. And if for those of you who Sam plays bass for Honey Island Swamp Band, usually barefoot overalls with like aviator glasses, or maybe they're not aviator glasses, but some kind of weird glasses. He's just a really sweet human being and can play, and he's assembled a really nice band. I like those two albums that he's put out. And then before that, at 12:35 on the Lagniappe stage, Ingrid Lucia, who she's one of the reasons I fell in love with New Orleans. Like I came to see, I saw her in New York when she was playing with, what was the name of her band?
The Flying Neutrinos.
Flying Neutrinos, exactly. And it was, and I saw her, I think, play in Tower Records at one of the in-stores, and that's the sound that kind of pulled me into the gypsy jazz underbelly of New Orleans. And so she's been through a lot. She's had a kidney replacement, I believe, and I owe it to her to go see her again.
I'm going to add on that same stage the Lily Lewis project. She's great. I believe she lives in New Orleans now. She just came off tour with the Indigo Girls, and it's sort of a blend of rock and soul, I guess, for lack of better terms, but really a fun band.
Yeah.
I don't think I can choose one, so I'm just not going to do that because this is my podcast.
You're so rebellious. So rebellious.
A couple of things I want to call out. So got the feedback that calling out some stuff on the interview stage was helpful for some folks. So the day at the Allison Minor Music Heritage stage begins with a very intriguing 45-minute interview involving our early records. you'll recognize a few names that are on the panel. I'm going to give the spotlight to Rachel Lyons, who is a friend of our podcast as well, because she was on last year. She's the archivist for the Jazz and Heritage Foundation. I think that's going to be an interesting and insightful interview. Our Hulu, of course, if you're not familiar, is an important American record label that's been around for a long time and is credited with putting out music from many obscure blues artists and beyond that. So that might be a very informative and interesting way to start your day. What I'm looking forward to the most that day, I think, aside from John Batiste, is Alinda Segarra, who I saw about a month or so ago solo at Chikiwawa. If you're not familiar with Alinda, she is the front person of Hooray for the Riff Raff, and she's an absolutely incredible songwriter. I think she's one of the best songwriters in America today, like lyricists. And so I'm very interested to see her in the Cultural Pavilion because she is of Puerto Rican ancestry. She writes about modern Puerto Rican American issues sometimes. So I'm really interested in seeing what she does, who's there with her. And that's at 1:55 in the Cultural Pavilion.
For those,
Go ahead.
For those people who have never visited Jazz Fest before, I'm going to highly recommend Irma Thomas at 3 something at the big stage, at the festival stage. She's just tremendous. She just embodies what New Orleans is, the soul queen of New Orleans. You'll recognize some of her songs. The ones you don't, you'll love, and you can dance with her music too.
And I think I'm going to try to, I have my newbies in mind, what I think they're really going to connect with. Who knows if they're even going to still hang with me by the time the second day comes around. But I think I'd like to bring them to the jazz tent for Trumpet Mafia, of course. That is the set that people are always talking about afterward if they stumbled upon it. And it's really just, I can't even guess how many trumpet players they're going to have on stage, a mafia of them. And it's going to be last year. They kind of split they battled. It was great. There were like 2 teams and they were just like battling with music, and it was really exciting and high energy. So I might recommend that. And then if my crew is looking to chill and sit for a little while, hey, we might be in there with seats, wait 20 minutes and John Boutte starts. So yeah, that might happen.
Excellent recommendation. And if you're going to you could do the same thing at the Blues Tent, which would be Sue Foley and Eric Lindell. They're almost back to, it's almost the exact same times as Trumpet Mafia and John Boutte. And Sue is a female blues player. She plays a mean guitar. She's been around for a while, and she's the real deal.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we can't get into the jazz tent for some reason, that's a really good duo as well.
Yeah.
I know many people are excited about Molly Tuttle and Golden Highway, as they should be. I may not make it over for Molly, but that's only because I've had the opportunity to see her a few times before. And she is a phenom bluegrass player. And she and her band are just completely smoking. They're going to completely destroy the Fedodo stage. I'm excited about it. I may not make it over there though, but a lot of folks are going to be excited for that on Friday.
I'm not embarrassed to admit that I don't know who Kane Brown is, who's playing the last set at the Gentilly stage.
He's a big country star.
Okay.
That's always the answer when I don't know who the person is.
Second Friday is one of them.
Yeah, when I see a closer, I always say, and they're on a big stage, and I don't know who they are. Must be a country star.
I love
that.
Right,
and of course, as Russ mentioned, Christian McBride's new John is going to be closing out the jazz tent, which would be an excellent choice for anyone. Christian McBride is, of course, a Philadelphia bass player, so near and dear to my heart. And I'm really happy that he's getting a closing set at Jazz Fest, but I probably won't be able to make it over.
Just incredible. It's like one of those folks that, like, no matter what is being played, he is on it and on top of it. He's just like, I've seen him play. I've seen him do random sit-ins. I've seen him play James Brown with Questlove and Eric Krasno. I've seen him do straight ahead shit with Joshua Redman and then his own stuff. He's just amazing.
And also, it's a really strong kids tent day, not just for the Glenn Hartman and the Earth Tones potential, I said Zydeco, sorry, klezmer moment, but Andre Barn and the Electric Yacht Quartet are presenting Peter and the Wolf, I think, to close the kids tent that day. And I think that's going to be a popular one to check out for folks with kids and folks who don't have kids.
Excellent. Are we on to Saturday?
Because I have one other one, which I listened to, but I've never seen. Empel Ghost Day. I tried, I'm not, like, it's not my favorite genre of music usually, that like what they're featuring this year in terms of the Puerto Rican bands. But Empel Ghost Day, from the little that I've heard online, it's a really horn heavy, real funky beat to it. If I can make it after the Tin Men, well, I'm sorry, that's Saturday. I'm already on.
Yeah,
Saturday.
I was gonna say I don't see that.
Sorry,
Hold that thought.
I'm gonna hold that thought till 5
I gotta say one more thing, which is you got Long Tall in the second slot at the main stage. Gotta always give Marcia Ball her due. And the same with the Soul Rebels, who are at an inconvenient time up against Irma Thomas and John Boutte and Eric Lindell and Molly Tuttle. But you know, I just got to see them in Brooklyn, and they're still fantastic.
All right, let's jump to Saturday, May 6th.
Well, I think we should just pick it up where Jordan started.
Go for it, Jordan.
So Empel Ghost Day is the one that people probably haven't heard of. Horn heavy, funky band from, I believe, Puerto Rico. They're in the Cultural Pavilion tent at 445. But to me, it's one of the two best songwriters in New Orleans. Alex McMurray is playing with Glenn Hartman in the ARP Rhythm Emporium at 125, and also with the Tin Men at 420. And if you haven't seen the Tin Men, they are sousaphone, washboard, guitar trio. It's something that can only exist in New Orleans, and they'll play everything from old swing tunes to Zeppelin covers to sea shanties. They're fun, and they're at the Lagniappe stage at 420. Those ones, and then I'm definitely going to make time. I don't know how to see Anders Osborne, even though he and Alex McMurray are up against each other exactly. But Anders' shows are either usually kind of more rocky but more of a rock show than you see. His shows at the fairgrounds are more of a rock show than you would normally see him in, and that's 125 at the big stage, the festival stage. And I prefer his rock stuff sometimes to his singer-songwriter stuff. So I'll go, if I can make it over there, I'll go see him as well.
Swag, I'm talking a lot. What do you got?
So I got a couple of favorites in the blues tent. Mid-afternoon, we've got Glenn David Andrews. If you don't know him, he's a trombone player, which is not necessarily what you think of as the lead instrument for a blues band, but he's on such a high energy, blow it all out show every time he hits the stage. If you've never seen him, that's one to catch.
Yep.
And then later in the day, Robert Randolph, Sacred Steel player with Gospel Heritage, favorite of mine, and he's an out-of-towner who doesn't tour through New Orleans all that much outside of the festival. So I'm definitely looking forward to catching him. John Hyatt and the Goners. I've got that one highlighted. Like I heard Sonny Landreth might be sitting in with them. Then I don't really consider myself a deadhead, but at some point I'll get over to the big stage and catch some Dead and Company.
They have what, like a 6-hour set?
Right.
It's 2.5.
Enough time for 2 or 3 songs.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
They'll start with Drums in Space, though, I think. I don't know much about the Dead, but enough to make that joke. You know, it's interesting where you started, Swag, because like I wouldn't necessarily do this, but if it's like one of those super hot days, and it's, you know, I must be serious if I'm saying this about the blues tent, but one could make the case to camp there, right? Guitar Slim is phenomenal. Chubby Carrier is great. You got Glenn David. You got Deacon John between Glenn David and Robert Randolph.
Yeah.
Kebmo is a little poppy for me, but there's the flip side is there's not really anybody. Probably Terrence Blanchard will be where I close. Although I do like me some John Hyatt sometimes. But like I could see camping almost the whole day in the blues tent if that survived. There's like enough diversity of sounds, and they're all freaking killer. Couple things that jump out to me this day. There are a lot of players and bands that I have a lot of love for, but this day does not quite feel as high stakes as some of the other days. To me, it feels like a little lighter than some of the other days. Layla McCalla is phenomenal. I think she was there 2019 was the last time she was there, and I caught a bunch of her set. We caught a bunch of her set almost by accident, except a friend of ours was like, "Go check her out," and I was like, and
she's great.
Fantastic, just fantastic.
Her set at Fedota last year was phenomenal, and we stayed for the whole thing. It was wonderful. It's my highlight of Saturday.
I agree. As much as I hate agreeing with you, Nicole, I agree.
The tough part for me is that she's mostly up against. You want to talk about people that feel like musical family and reasons that I'm here. She's up against George Porter Jr. in the running. Like George is just like the heartbeat of so much, and like the meters are, it's like the meters and Prez Hall are like, and Rebirth are the reasons, are as big reasons as anybody why I started coming down here for this, which makes the Deacon John versus Prez Hall versus Dr. Michael White versus Dwayne Dopsy such a pain in the ass. That like 3 o'clock spot. You know, it's a big moment of stress. Also, James Rivers movement, great sort of like great free flowing jazz, not free jazz, but like great jazz. It'll be a great jazz set, but that's also right up against Glenn David, Erica Falls, who's a phenomenal singer, and Boyfriend, who's an awesome performer. If you're a hip hop person at all, like really interesting, raucous set.
Drama and stage production too.
Yeah. I got to see her the first time I saw her. She was actually sitting in with Galactics in store doing the song off of their album, the Dance at Your Funeral song, and just like lit it up in broad daylight at LMF, you know, in a little record store.
I would say about Boyfriend, that's a fun show, but if you really love that kind of thing, she's 10 times better out than at the fair.
That's a fair point. If you got
because time, it's much more burlesque. It's like they can do a lot more. It's like it's more. They don't have to be so censored on the fairground stage, and so they could take a lot more chances. All the guys were wearing like robes too. It was like it was really fun.
Cool. Yeah.
So some people have probably heard a little bit about Los Guiros. They're going to be on Jazz and Heritage stage at 125. They were a psychedelic cumbia band. I saw them open for Roy Danger and the Danger Dangers last year at the very end of Jazz Fest. They were so out there and extremely fun, danceable, a little wild. I think that's going to be a blast.
Oh, one more that I missed, which is at the AARP Rhythm Emporium, Debbie Davis and Josh Paxton. Like they're a hell of a team. Incredible singer, really brilliant piano player.
Except they're up against Tin Men. That's tough.
Yeah, that is true. They're up against Tin Men and Robert Randolph and Beau Soleil. And I don't know. Josh is just I mean, I love the Tin Men, but also Josh is such a compelling piano player. Just like.
I agree. What about Nightcrawlers? They have a new album coming out, right?
They sure do. Up against George, Chubby Carrier.
And Layla McCalla.
and Lila McCalla, but they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they're at Gentilly too, which is awesome. Good, give them some kavod, some honor.
The Grammy-winning New Orleans
The
Nightcrawlers.
Grammy winning. I wonder, have they, for you folks who live in, well, I guess really this is mostly a swag question. Have they paraded the Grammy around town like Rebirth did when they won? Rebirth, it was like the Stanley Cup. They brought that shit everywhere.
I don't think so, but what Grammy did for them is they started gigging.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've been around for like 20 years, but they always pretty much just play Jazz Fest and French Quarter Fest, and maybe one other gig over the year. This was everybody's side project, and we'll never tour with this band. Everyone else is too busy. And once they got the Grammy nomination, even that was enough that they started gigging around town, playing some clubs, and playing some port shows, because it was still the pandemic going on back then. And then after the win, I think now this is the main project for a lot of them. I'm sure it's a big part of the reason that Craig stepped away from Bonorama, so we'd have more time with the Nightcrawlers. So whether or not they're carrying it around, he is carrying them around.
You can find a couple of YouTube videos where they're playing New Orleans shows and they're holding it up, and there's a couple.
Good.
The other three, not that 12:35 hour isn't stacked enough, but Les Ferre's Michaud, I really feel like that's where Cajun and Zydeco music is going. Louis is going to bring that around, and that's at the Lagniappe stage. Dwayne Dopsy, also in the Zydeco Hellraisers, also new school Zydeco, which is fun. And then, I've seen the Lumineers now a couple times at big festivals, and I never thought much of them just on CD, but seeing them live, they're really good. They're a well-honed bands with good songwriting, good instrumentation. Their bass player is a guy named Byron Isaacs, who used to play with a band called Olabelle that I used to love. And they're actually really good. I'll probably end up finishing with them.
One last tiny plug for Deacon John. I know I sort of mentioned him in a flurry of things. That guy, if you've never been and you've never heard him, go see him. As much as I love many of the other folks that are playing, including Dwayne Dopsy that Jordan just mentioned, including Dr. Michael White and Prez Hall, go see him.
Yeah.
Go see him.
Before we jump into Sunday, we should really mention the Threadhead raffle that's going on, which I believe it's open till April 22nd. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I wish I had I could put the website on the show notes when I post this, but Threadhead Cultural Foundation.
Just threadheadraffle.com.
Oh, there you go. Even better. And there's tons of great prizes: tickets, restaurants, artwork, travel, jewelry, clothing, some great stuff, and goes to a worthy cause. All the money goes to New Orleans musicians and artists. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we on for the last day, our last day of Jazz Fest, Sunday, May 7th?
Gonna get sad.
Well, this day begins with a pile of trouble for me, okay? Because number one, it's the last day of Jazz Fest. I'm tired. Secondly, I was probably out late for Ralph Parizo the night before. But I need to get my butt through those gates early, because there's three things that I love going on at once. Number one, the Electrifying Crown Seekers in the Gospel Tent.
Yes.
Here.
Number two, TBC Brass Band on Congo Square Stage. I love that they've gotten the promotion to Congo Square Stage. They are my favorite brass band, but now it means I don't get to see them because they're on first, and they are up against one of my absolute favorite bands at all, period, Bokakani, a Philadelphia rock band led by Adam Weiner. They are a combination of dirty barroom rock and roll with a little Jerry Lee Lewis piano and deep, caring spirituality on top of it. They're just South Philly through and through. I was so excited they were on the lineup. I'm not sure how I feel about them starting the day. I think I'm bummed. But that's it. It's going to be a tough start for me, but that means I'm going to be there real early.
I'll throw Bon Bon Vivant as another band to consider in that opening time slot.
And Palm Court, you got Gerald French on the kit.
Swag, I would say Bon Bon Vivant last year was one of the best shows, late night shows I saw. There was like face painting with glow in the dark stuff. They just have this amazing vibe to them. So yeah, I'm with you.
And I don't know what to do about the first two bands you mentioned, though, because the Electrifying Crown Seekers are pound for pound, I would say, one of the best gospel acts that plays there. And there's some people you hear their name and you're like, oh, that's a little much. Like, are they really electrifying? They are. Yes, is the answer. But on the other hand, TBC is one of my favorite brass bands too, and they have such a tough history. They were when they were really coming up in like 2009 or 2010, I think it was, right after Jazz Fest. One of their leaders, their saxophone player, died in a horrible incident, and the band sort of carried on. And then they were really close with this cultural reporter and supporter who passed away, who was in the Mother's Day thing and passed away right before Jazz Fest. And I got to do the word got out that she passed away, and I got to do an honest to goodness in the streets of New Orleans second line for her. And they've been through a lot to get as far as they are, and I also love that they're at Congo, and so I'm gonna have to figure out how I do a little bit of both.
Can we circle back for a second to the Valparaiso show Saturday night?
Sure.
Do you guys know how old you have to be to get in there? Can an 18-year-old get in?
No.
Yeah, I think we could sneak them in the back. No, I'm kidding.
Got to be
Where are they
21.
playing?
Yeah, then get a fake ID.
Saturday.
Just put a mustache on them.
What about an 8.5-year-old who's been listening to South Australia since he was like 1?
Well, he can sit on my shoulders and we'll put the coat over us or something.
No, I wouldn't put him in the band. The only shot is to get him in the band. If he's
Yeah.
Let me
with the
tell you
band,
something.
he'll
He
be on
got some
stage.
pipes. He got some
Talk to
pipes.
Alex.
Yeah.
Sorry, kids.
I
think so.
So for that last day, I think this last day works out for me so beautifully in the sense that there's so much I want to see, and I'm not crippled by conflict, which I usually am. So I think I'm just gonna walk you through what, if it were today and I were planning what I was gonna do, I would do. I would start at 11:15 in the gospel tent with a beer. Get a beer, go sit down in the gospel tent, start with Electrifying Crown Seekers. Then halfway through that set, I'd make it over to Bon Bon Vivant at the Gentilly stage. I'd walk back and then hit Leo Jackson, the Melody Clouds of Joy, back in the gospel tent. Then over to Lagniappe for Lulu and the Broadsides. Then I would head back to Gentilly for Zigaboo for a little bit of his funk review. Swing back to the blues tent for Martha Redbone, who's at 1:30 at the blues tent. Then over to Galactic. Maybe hit Sweet Cecilia at Lagniappe first, but probably just straight to Galactic, and catch as much of that set as I can at the festival stage at 1:55. On the way back, I would run by Economy Hall and check out a little bit of Don Vappy and the Creole Jazz Serenaders. But not stay too long because I really want to see the Deslones at Lagniappe stage. So I might see the Deslones, which is like countries like Hank Williams swing. Doesn't sound like I would like them, but for some reason I love them. I might switch those two. I might go to Lagniappe first and then over to Economy Hall. And then in the middle there, I would catch a little Tab Benoit, a little at the blues tent, some Charlie Gabriel at the Economy Hall, over to Fado Do for a dance or two at Nathan the Zydeco Cha-Chas. And then I would finish with Flow Tribe, Melissa Etheridge, Tom Jones, and then finally Trombone Shorty. And that's at Lagniappe Blues Tent, Gentilly, and the festival stage. That's probably, if I were to decide today, that's what my day would look
That's amazing. You have a no conflict day with steam bands.
like.
Swag, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so some good stuff you mentioned. Some others, I'm looking forward to catching some Mumford and Sons. I haven't seen them since the last time they played Jazz Fest, and I enjoyed that set a lot. Melissa Etheridge, he's one that's been rescheduled a couple of times. She was on a pandemic Jazz Fest schedule that didn't happen, so I want to see her. And then,
Have you seen her before, Swag?
I'm sorry,
Have you seen Melissa Etheridge before?
I actually have not.
Neither have I. That's why I'm excited to see her too.
Before. And then two bands who are on my, well, if I don't see them this day, I may not see them again, are Tom Jones and the Flatlanders. So that's gonna be a tough one for me, but I haven't finished the Jazz Fest at Fade Odo in a long time. Usually I kind of do a lap and catch a little bit of everybody, but yeah, maybe let's see if the Flatlanders can pull me in, and they spend a lot of time there.
I'm actually hoping for the same. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think last year we closed, I think Sun Pie closed out Fade Odo last year. I think that's where we closed.
Yes.
So after the Electrifying Crown Seekers TVC situation, I honestly could see a day. I don't think this is going to happen because I don't think my family will stand for it. But I could totally see a day where basically all I'm doing is going between the Jazz Tent and Economy Hall. Joe Dyson's Look Within project. Joe Dyson, for folks who don't know who Joe Dyson is, he is an insanely good drummer. He's an incredible drummer. And I've seen him play trad jazz with Evan Christopher. I've seen him play jazz, straight up jazz and funk with Donald Harrison. I've seen him play hip hop. He is just so good. And this is his album of compositions. That's what Look Within is. And I think it's going to be an incredible set. And then from there, hop over. I gotta give the Treme brass bands their due, right? And then from there, I could see just jumping back. So for folks who don't know what David Torkanowski means when he's saying a tribute to the ELM Music Company, that's Ellis Marsalis. And the ELM Music Company, I think there might have been an album released specifically with that name. But like, I imagine that's just going to be a fantastic set. I'm hoping maybe Derek Duguay and some of the other folks that played with Ellis, before he passed, are going to be playing in that set. And maybe you'll get some Herlin Riley. I don't know. We'll see.
Tork is really one of the best jazz piano players in town.
He's somebody who I think he holds a lot of the New Orleans tradition. He's an incredible jazz player too. He's just amazing. And then I would probably try to get the last little bit of Don Vappy and the Creole Jazz Serenaders. He's an institution. You don't have a lot of Creole banjo players like him out there anymore. And among the first times I saw the Prez Hall band was when he was with the touring band. I just always have loved his playing. And then I would park there for Charlie Gabriel. Yeah. Speaking of paying our elders their due. And then you gotta go back. I can't see closing anywhere else except I might sneak a little bit of Trombone Shorty at the end because that feels like the right place to end. But Herbie Hancock. Mm-hmm. And knowing how undiminished Tom Jones's voice is, if you're a Tom Jones person, the last time I heard him a year or two ago, he was amazing. But like Herbie is just Herbie, man. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many times I'm going to get to see him again. And every time he knocks it the hell out of the park. I don't know what I'm going to do about Nathan and the Zydeco Chachas, who are also one of my favorite Zydeco bands. But like, could totally see just camping out those two stages, even though I am literally wearing a Galactic shirt right now. I love them, but like there's some things you can't see in New York.
I had to step away for a minute. Did anyone mention the Continental Drifters?
No.
Oh yeah, they're a must-see. 210 Gentilly stage, one of the best Americana bands out there. Really, really fun band.
Well, I'm gonna try to catch them. They have a evening gig at the Willow. I believe that's Friday night, Friday, May 5th. If that sounds right. Yeah. I'm gonna try to catch them then in night gig for sure. Just mentioning it in case anybody else has some conflicts. My Sacred Sunday, I kind of am feeling aside from my first round of conflicts, I really want this just to be a wonder and enjoy day. I'm gonna have some family and friends who are gonna be first timers in the days before, and I think it's just gonna be Chris and I left on Sunday. So I'm looking forward to doing what I do best and just wandering and enjoying Jazz Fest.
Yeah.
I'll throw this out for the first timers. If you're wandering around or you're torn between some of the bands at the end of the day, the schedule says they all end at 7, but the festival stage, Trombone Shorty always plays probably at least 7:20.
Yeah.
So whenever Tom Jones or Herbie Hancock or the Flatlanders shut down, you can still hustle back to the festival stage and catch another 15 or 20 minutes of goodness there.
That is exactly my plan. So exactly the reason. That's a good
That's
point.
a really good point.
Definitely.
And actually,
then,
something made me think of this earlier for any newcomers. The timing during the day of the sets, like particularly in like the jazz tent and the blues tent, one of the things I like about Jazz Fest is that it's a pretty professional turnaround. Like if they say they're going to start at 1:10, if someone's still hitting the head and taking a pee, they're starting. Like there's not a lot of it's really unusual for something to start dramatically later than it's scheduled to. So when you look at the schedule, like 20 minutes of downtime, sometimes that goes by pretty quickly. By the time the band takes the stage, the new setup starts. So if you do see two things back to back, you don't have to necessarily feel like, oh, I'm wasting 20 minutes or whatever. Be comfortable, hang out for the next set.
so Nicole, you're disagreeing with Tom Jones, who might say it's not unusual.
That was a good one.
My gosh, that might be a good way to end.
Oh man, but I was going to say something about Treme brass bands.
Go for it. Go for it.
Which is just the similarly, because I'm thinking about our first timers who are coming, right? Like the Treme brass band is going to have which crew is they going to have? They're going to have the Goodfellas Social Aid and Pleasure Club second lining with them. They're as good a group as any to get a feel for what the real traditional New Orleans old school brass bands feel like. And they'll have a great second line in there. If you haven't had a chance to get to that tent, and this is circling back to, I think either Jordan or Swag said this last time, right? The tents that are really the heart of Jazz Fest to me feel like Fado Do, Gospel Tent, Jazz and Heritage, and Economy Hall. Like these are the tents you're not going to find in too many other music festivals. And like that is one of the heartbeats of New Orleans music. And I would definitely, if you can get to the Treme brass band for a few minutes, definitely get there, catch a tune or two.
And I would say that the other thing, don't forget the Lanyap stage. Like a lot of people go to Jazz Fest and never even know it exists. And it's a beautiful little stage in the middle of the racetrack, in the paddock. It's just got its own feeling to it. It's a lot of the new acts that aren't big enough yet to play on the bigger stages. And it's a sweet little place to be. And then for people, the festival ends at 7, like literally at 7, except for, as Swag said, Trombone Shorty will go to 7:20. But that means there's a whole night out there, and jazzfestgrids.com is the place to go to find all those shows and be overwhelmed even more than you are with the cubes.
Well, before we wrap up, I actually was going to ask a quick bonus round question, if you guys don't mind staying for just the minute that we will briefly answer it. What's your evening? Give it evening pick, like one choice, one evening of like a few things that really stand out to you that you would like listeners to know about.
Sleep.
You're boring. Who's
I got 2, I guess. Break the rules already, but I think I mentioned on the last call, but every year on first Sunday night at DBA, you'll find me at the Funk and Chant show, which is Marty Gras and Big Chief Monk Boudreaux playing with Papa John Grow. That's always one of my favorite shows of post-fest evenings. And then last year, the one that I went to that I thought I would enjoy, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I even thought I would, was the Honey Island Swamp Band doing Dark Side of the Swamp, where they
cool.
Pink Floyd, and it was outdoor at the Broadside, yet even outdoors, laser show going on, and it was just a great groove and something a bit different. And I believe that one's happening again. I don't have the grids in front of me. I can tell you what day. Look for that one.
I feel like it's second weekend somewhere, like it's Saturday. I'll look, but I think that's what it is. I would say just go to the small clubs. Like you could spend your whole time at Sanger or at Tipitina's or at Howlin' Wolf, but like go see Andrew Duhon at Carrollton Station on the 30th. It's just the first Sunday. It's a sit down place. Go see Honey Island Swamp Band at the Maple Leaf on Saturday the 29th. It's the Maple Leaf is fantastic, a fun little place. Maggie Kerner at the Marnie Opera House both Fridays.
But that's such a great spot too.
Yeah, it's a nice thing. In days in between, go see Woodenhead at Carrollton Station. That band you can't see anywhere else. And if you're a guitar person, it is insane. I would, and then the second weekend for me is Grayson Caps at Carrollton Station. He's incredible. Morning 40, Federation of the Rabbit Hole, drunk funk punk. It doesn't get any sloppier rock and roll than that, except maybe Suplex in the Rough Seven at BJ's on Saturday. And then I like to close with Dumpster Funk at Tipitina's the last day. And then maybe I'll see Bonorama at 1. But like all those, like I'll usually see 2 or 3 shows a night after Jazz Fest. But if you're going to just do one, some of those ones are great. Go to the small clubs. You'll be so happy.
Agree. I think my sentimental favorite right now is there's a Dr. Lonnie Smith concert on Tuesday. And
is that
just
the Worship My Organ one?
What's that?
Is that the Worship My Organ show or a different one?
No. It's a Dr. Lonnie Smith tribute. It's
okay.
Donald Harrison and Herlin and Will Blades and I think also possibly either Will Bernard or Detroit Brooks. Some mashup of the sort of regular band that he played with, but also with the band that he used to do as part of like a series of concerts. And there were a couple of tributes in New York after Dr. Lonnie Smith passed away, but I didn't get to. For a variety of reasons, I couldn't get to them. And so, like being able to be in New Orleans and hear a tribute to him is really special because some of my favorite. I got to see him a bunch in New York, but some of my very favorite sets were with a whole bunch of people from Jazz Fest. If you got locked out, if you weren't able to get yourself a ticket to the incredible Threadhead Pottery, which is for me one of the year highlights of Jazz Fest, there's an incredible sounding Zildjian's 400th anniversary, the drum and cymbal maker at Tips, with an unbelievable cast of drummers and a house band that's like Ivan Neville, Eric Krasno, Tony Hall, Joe Ashlar, Brad Walker, and John Michael Bradford as the horn section. It's just like I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, is there a way I could slip out of the pottery for even like an hour to catch some of that? Because that sounds like that's going to be phenomenal too.
That's at 3, right? Yeah,
it's at 3:00. And if you're in town on the days between and you're like, man, I didn't get to that pottery. It's so much bigger. Why did they sell out? And they, we obviously we want it to be a place where people can like connect with one another. So it's not oversold. It's not super big, but this is another great thing that's happening during the day on Tuesday.
There's no shortage of those. There's lots of stuff.
That is the truth.
I'm gonna shout out just like I think 2 or 3 really quick things. So Thursday, May 4th, I'm actually just gonna look at second weekend because it's second weekend. So Thursday, May 4th, Helen Gillet, Alex McMurray, Rex Gregory, and Doug Garrison are gonna be at the Happy Land Theater. It is an album release party for Helen's new album that looks like the Wazozo crew, her Wazozo French band. So if you're in the mood for something, first of all, at a really interesting venue, the Happy Land Theater in the Marigny, that's going to be kind of interesting and unusual. if you want to listen to something that you can't hear back home, unless you invite Helen to your home like I did to play, you want to hear some sort of spacey cello and some French music, I promise it's going to be more fun than it sounds the way I'm describing it. That would be one of my picks for second weekend. We were just talking about the Continental Drifters. That's Friday, May 5th. They are going to be at the Willow with Desert Nudes, who we mentioned previous podcast, another Americana band, and Alex McMurray as well. And that is at the Willow. And a portion of the proceeds from that show benefit the American Cancer Society in memory of Carlo Nuccio, who of course was a big time character and legendary drummer who passed away and who will be memorialized often at this jazz fest, I am sure. And then finally, I have 2 picks for Saturday, May 6th. This is the night I'm most excited about. I'm going to go see the Klezmer All-Stars and the Iguanas at Vaughn's, and then I am going to have my people on the ground at the Saturn Bar for Valparaiso to feed me intel about when they're going to start, and I'm going to take the whole crew over. So I really love the Klezmers and the Iguanas at Vaughn's because it's such a weird place. It's going to get crowded. Everyone's going to dance. It's going to be fun. It's going to have great energy. And then I'm not going to tell you guys anything about Valparaiso if you don't know anything about them, because that's a secret that you have to find out about in person.
And then after that comes the Iceman special at the Toulouse Theater. That'll be fun too. That doesn't start till 1.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Matt.
All right. Our producers are saying we're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I
thanks,
can't wait
guys.
to see you all.
See you all in a little over 2 weeks. Actually,
Right.
2 weeks from today.
Yeah, and again, email me if you want those big copies of the grids or night show recommendations or any of that stuff. I'm happy to send them off. I make them for myself, but it's silly not to share them.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone. See you at Fest.
See you there.
See you
All
later.
right.
Can't wait.